He woke up beside his off-limits neighbor, with no memory of confessing his love. When Marcus opened his eyes that Sunday morning, the first thing he noticed wasn't the unfamiliar ceiling or the soft lavender scent of the pillows. It was the warmth of a body pressed against his back, an arm draped casually over his waist, and the gentle rhythm of breathing that definitely wasn't his own. His heart stopped. Then it started racing so fast he thought it might explode right out of his chest. He slowly, carefully turned his head to the left, and there she was. Elena, his neighbor, his 45-year-old, incredibly beautiful, completely off-limits neighbor. She was wearing his shirt, his blue button-down shirt that he distinctly remembered putting on yesterday evening. Her long silky hair was spread across the pillow like a dark waterfall, and her perfect figure was barely concealed by the thin fabric. And then she opened one eye, smiled that devastating smile of hers, and whispered in a voice still thick with sleep, "Good morning, wild man. You were absolutely incredible last night." Marcus had absolutely no memory of how he got here. None. Zero. The last thing he remembered was sitting at his kitchen table, staring at a single glass of whiskey, and crying over his daughter's college acceptance letter. Now stay with me, because what happened in the 24 hours before this moment, and what would happen in the days that followed, would change everything Marcus thought he knew about love, loss, second chances, and the terrifying beauty of letting someone see the real you. But first, let me take you back 3 months earlier to the moment when everything started falling apart and somehow impossibly falling into place. Marcus Rivera was 35 years old, a single father for the past 6 years, and according to his teenage daughter, Sophie, the most embarrassingly dad-like dad in the entire Pacific Northwest. He was strikingly handsome in a way that made strangers do double takes on the street, with chiseled features, a jawline that could cut glass, and eyes so deep brown they looked almost black in certain lighting. His fair skin was flawless, and he had the kind of aesthetic build that came from dedicated gym sessions and a genuine love of staying active. At 35, he was in the prime of his life physically, turning heads wherever he went, though he seemed genuinely oblivious to the effect he had on people. His dark hair was always perfectly styled in that effortless way that actually took 15 minutes every morning, though he would never admit it. He was charismatic in that effortless way that made people lean in when he spoke, and he wielded his sharp, witty sense of humor like a Swiss Army knife, using it to charm strangers, diffuse awkward situations, and most importantly, to keep anyone from getting too close to the parts of himself that still hurt. The cruel irony of Marcus Rivera was that he looked like a man who had everything figured out. Handsome, successful, charming, young, but underneath that perfect exterior was a heart so scarred that he had convinced himself it would never fully heal. Elena Thornton moved into the house next door on a rainy Tuesday in March. Marcus watched from his kitchen window as she directed the movers with the confidence of a general commanding troops, her long dark hair somehow managing to look elegant even in the drizzle. She was 10 years older than him, 45 to his 35, and she carried herself with the kind of quiet confidence that only comes from surviving things that would break most people. She caught him staring, and instead of looking away like a normal person, Marcus raised his coffee mug in a salute. She laughed and waved back. That laugh, it did something to his chest that he immediately decided to ignore. Over the following weeks, their interactions were brief, but charged with something neither of them acknowledged. She would be checking her mail when he left for work. He would be mowing his lawn when she came back from her morning yoga. They traded hellos that lasted a little too long, smiles that meant a little too much, and once when their fingers touched as he handed her a package that had been delivered to his address by mistake, neither of them pulled away for a full 3 seconds. 3 very long, very confusing seconds. "You should ask her out," Sophie said one evening, not looking up from her phone. Marcus nearly choked on his pasta. "What? Who? What are you talking about?" "The hot neighbor lady. Elena. You stare at her like she's the last pizza slice at a party." "I do not stare. I glance. Neighborly glances. That's what neighbors do." Sophie finally looked up, giving him the withering look that only a 17-year-old girl can truly master. "Dad, I love you, but you're pathetic. It's been 6 years since Mom left. You're allowed to like someone." Marcus put down his fork, his appetite suddenly gone. "Sophie, it's complicated." "It's really not." But it was so complicated because Marcus hadn't just been abandoned by his wife. He had been destroyed by her. Rebecca had left on Sophie's 11th birthday while the cake was still in the oven, while the streamers were still being hung. He had been only 29 years old, barely into his 30s, when his entire world collapsed. She had looked at Marcus and told him that she had never really loved him, that Sophie had been a mistake she'd spent 11 years trying to outrun, and that she had found someone who actually made her feel alive. The someone was Marcus's best friend since college. They moved to Costa Rica. They sent exactly one postcard, which Marcus burned in the backyard, while Sophie watched from her bedroom window. The next 6 years were a blur of therapy, appointments, school plays, soccer games, burned dinners, tear-filled nights, and slowly, painfully building something that looked like a normal life. Marcus had gone from a 29-year-old newlywed who thought he had forever figured out to a 35-year-old single father who trusted no one with his heart. He became both mother and father. He learned to braid hair. He learned which brand of pads Sophie preferred. He learned how to talk about boys and broken hearts and the terror of growing up. He learned that sometimes the strongest thing a man can do is cry in the shower so his daughter doesn't hear him fall apart. But he never learned how to let anyone in again. How could he? Rebecca had seen every part of him, and she had decided it wasn't enough. She had looked at his love, his devotion, his very soul, and she had shrugged and walked away. How do you recover from that? How do you trust anyone with your heart when you know exactly how easy it is for someone to crush it? So Marcus kept everyone at arm's length. He dated occasionally, mostly to appease Sophie and his sister, who kept setting him up with her co-workers. Women were drawn to him constantly, captivated by his handsome face and magnetic personality. But he never let anyone pass the first few layers. He was funny and charming and attentive. And then right when things might get real, he would make a joke that was just cutting enough to create distance. Say something that was just dismissive enough to push them away. It was a defense mechanism so ingrained that he barely noticed he was doing it anymore. And then Elena Thornton moved in next door with her long silky hair and her perfect figure and her laugh that sounded like the first warm day after a long winter, and Marcus felt the walls he had spent 6 years building start to crack. The first time they really talked was in June, exactly 2 weeks after Sophie got her college acceptance letter to Stanford. She wanted to be a biomed engineer. She wanted to change the world. She wanted to move 143 miles away from the only person who had never left her. Marcus was proud. He was so incredibly proud. And he was also falling apart in ways he couldn't explain or control. Elena found him sitting on his front porch at 11 Oders at night, staring at nothing, an empty beer bottle beside him. "Rough night?" she asked, appearing from the shadows like some kind of beautiful ghost. Marcus started, then recovered with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Just communing with the mosquitoes. They're excellent listeners, very non-judgmental." Elena sat down beside him without asking permission. She was wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweater, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked like someone who had stopped trying to impress people a long time ago, and somehow became more impressive because of it. "I heard through the neighborhood grapevine that your daughter got into Stanford," she said. "That's incredible." "It is," Marcus agreed. "Incredible. Amazing, wonderful. I'm thrilled." Each adjective sounded more hollow than the last. Elena studied him for a long moment. Most people accepted his performance at face value. Most people didn't look past the smile and the handsome face. But Elena tilted her head and said, "You're terrified, aren't you?" Marcus' carefully constructed expression faltered. "I don't know what you mean." "I raised 2 kids, Elena said softly. "They're both adults now, living their own lives on the other side of the country. I remember exactly what it felt like when they left, like someone was removing my organs with a dull spoon." Marcus let out a laugh that was more of a breath. "That's graphic." "I'm a retired surgeon. We're allowed to be graphic." "A surgeon? Seriously? 30 years of cardiothoracic surgery. Hearts were my specialty." She smiled and there was something sad in it. Ironic really, given how badly I managed to break my own. And just like that, they were no longer neighbors making small talk. They were 2 people who recognized something broken in each other. Something that maybe only another broken person could understand.